Welcome to Architects of Opportunities, a series on founders of nonprofit organizations. We will look at how one person or a few people saw a need in your community and found a way to fill it. Who are the people that are inspired to see a need and bring others together to lend a hand, and not for profit? They are the nonprofit founders. Founders are everyday heroes. They envision possibility and persevere to accomplish it. Founders in all sectors and across the country share a common vision. They want to make a difference. Today, we will introduce you to one organization who makes a contribution to your community.
Hi, Marilyn and Sherm. Hi, everybody. This is Marilyn Price from Trips for Kids, the founder, and Sherman Yee, one of the prime volunteers and
Ride leader.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us today. We really want to know a lot about how you started. And so, Marilyn, what gave you the spark to start this, other than just being an avid bike rider?
Well, and it was a combination of things. Definitely an avid bike rider since the age of 4. Not avid since the age of 4, but loving bikes since I learned how to ride. And very interested in, or very concerned about our environmental problems. That goes back to when I was in college, and then kind of got reactivated in the 70s. And I also wanted to be a social worker. And my bike took me one day up Mount Tamalpais, and I had also volunteered at St. Anthony's Dining Room for a couple years, just going in and giving food to the people that, came to the dining room. And I looked across to the city on my bike, and I thought, wouldn't it be neat to bring these kids up here? And that was the beginning thought of Trips for Kids, combining my 3 interests into one.
Oh.
And that was the start of it.
When was that?
That was in 1986.
Wow. And Sherm, how did you get involved?
I started as a volunteer with Trips for Kids, learning about Marilyn's organization, that they go out on mountain bike rides. I had just gotten a mountain bike and I wanted to go riding. I was a new dad myself, so I wanted to experience working with kids that were slightly older. And 12 years later, Marilyn hired me in the office, and now I'm one of the assistant ride leaders, taking groups of kids out every week.
Marilyn, the thing you probably won't talk about is that you are a CNN hero, and that's thrilling. So can you tell me a little bit? I've seen the video, but talk a little bit about that.
Well, that was probably our biggest honor, to have been chosen as one of the 2015 CNN heroes. And the other nice thing about that is any kind of recognition like that is just so good for the organization, because it not only gets more people aware of what you're doing, but it continues to build up your credibility. So personally, I kind of remove myself from any thought of it, but I know it's really good for Trips for Kids.
Well,
it was fun.
Congratulations. Yes. It's such an honor. So I'm curious about the trip itself, as if I were there. Can you tell me a little bit about it? How a bike ride goes?
Well, and I will also preface that with something else, because as I say, we've got these chapters. To date, it's been about 140,000 kids around the country that with all of our chapters we've served. I get press releases from them or communications from them, and I read what they've written. I could shut my eyes and think, that could be us. There is something very universal about getting a kid on a bike out into nature. So what happens with us here in the Bay Area, as I say, we'll take kids from social service agencies all around the Bay Area, and they bring the kid to us. We meet introductory lessons, how to shift the bikes, how to ride them, appropriate trail etiquette. And the interesting thing about that, for the most part, unless the kids are really little, you meet the kids, they're teenagers, and they're like looking at you, who are you? What is this going to be like? And I hear this, as I say, from the chapters too. And after we get them suited and out on the bikes, and we're out off-road, in park settings, all of a sudden, in about 20 minutes, all of that melts away. And that's where the bonding, with the child opens up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It doesn't happen on every trip, but it happens on a lot of trips. And I attribute that to nature, the bike, the kid, wonderful volunteers that are relating to the kids. And it's just, at the end of that ride, you think of it, this was really magical. It was just a beautiful ride.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sherm could maybe add to that.
We started riding fire roads and trails around Marin, right, Marilyn? Around Mount Tam. We do China Camp. It's a popular place. Tennessee Valley. Lately, we've trying to get out closer to our agency. So we've been in the city. Golden Gate Park is our main riding place. And you think it's just a park, but there are a lot of side trails and back roads, which the kids enjoy, and it's a credible mountain biking experience. We also try to hit the East Bay. A lot of our agencies are out there, out in Point Richmond. So it's a combination of fire road, and it's for the beginner. Some rides are for more skilled riders, whom we get as repeat customers, so to speak. So it's all, we tailor our rides to our clientele, and if there are little kids and beginners, it'll be an easier ride. Bigger kids, more experience, who have been out with us before, we'll do the full Monty and take them out on the steep ones, steep single tracks. So it depends. We load up our bikes early in the morning, and we provide everything: snacks, water.
Do you go for the sunny days, or do you ride even in sort of inclement weather?
We try to stay away from the bad weather, because kids don't have the right rain gear to keep warm. So yeah, we're kind of fair weather that way. It keeps it safe.
That's
too.
great. Sure. Yeah. And what about safety? The kids, I just can imagine. How many kids at the most do you take out? Or small?
About 16.
Oh my
We try to
goodness.
keep it
So you
around
have
16.
16 kids that are some teenagers, and
Yeah,
they mind you, they pay attention.
Depends on how good their agency leader is, and that's why we rely a lot on volunteers to help bolster our numbers. We try to give a 1-to-3, 1-to-4
1 to
ratio.
3. We actually, it has to be a 1-to-3 ratio.
Okay.
One adult for every 3 kids.
Fantastic.
Whether it's an agency leader or volunteer. So that's how I was pulled into this organization, because they always called me up, Sherm, can you volunteer again? I said, okay, soon you'll be paying me for this, but and sure enough.
Yeah, volunteers get high pay.
Years later, yeah, but it was all, I would still be doing it for free. Is that-
Wonderful.
He would,
Yeah.
definitely. He would be.
Wonderful.
I know, sure.
Yeah. So, so it could be a handful sometimes, but the kids get something out of it.
You see their happy faces at the end
Yeah.
of the ride.
Yeah.
Thrilled.
Almost always. I would say I did the rides for 10 years. I started with 1 ride on a weekend to 2 rides. I think during those 10 years, I never got much beyond the two rides, but 2 rides a week, but throughout the year. But very rarely at the end we have a cookie circle, and we go around, and I think tradition, we're still doing it. You go around, what did you like? What did you not like? What did you learn? And I would say only a very small handful of kids ever did not want to come back.
Oh, I bet.
So that everybody really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed the trip.
Wonderful. Well, I see the happy kids, and I see all the bikes in your shop. And so, okay, you had the idea, you wanted to do something. Were you working at the time?
I was working for an environmental organization that was started by Huey Johnson, who had started Trust for Public Land, who was Governor Brown's Secretary of Resources. And when he left Sacramento, he started his own organization, and I was the first person that he hired. And actually, so, I was working with environment. I would bike from my home in Mill Valley. He had his offices out at Rodeo Beach. And so I would bike. I was with him for about 9 years. I'd bike every day out and back. So I was combining both, a beautiful commute to work, working for an environmental organization, and also learning from Huey, because he was just starting his nonprofit, what went into starting a nonprofit, bylaws, how to approach funders, how to thank funders. I hadn't had much experience other than being a housewife and a mother. So I really learned the basics of nonprofit too from Huey.
Wow. Were you part of this coalition of nonprofits in the county at that time?
Yeah, I don't know. Huey was not necessarily working with other nonprofits. As a matter of fact, now 27 years later, I am looking back at what exists in terms of environmental organizations in Marin, because I've lost touch. 27 years, it was Trips for Kids, and there definitely are a lot more today than there were then.
And you've done a lot, and also Sherm, to get these kids interested in the environment and being outdoors. And well, can you tell me a little bit about the kids? What kind of kids come? How you find them?
Well, and the kids, we have two facets of our work with kids. We have kids that we take on our bike rides. They come from all over the Bay Area, and we sign up with agencies. The agencies bring the kids to us, and the agencies are all there. The kids that we work with are all kids who could not afford to have this experience without us. And so they bring the kids and we take them on the ride. Some of them we'll see more than once. Some of them we may only see once. So we have that program, which is how we started. And we have had, I think, about 25,000 kids through the years since I first started, that here in the Bay Area we have served them that way. Then in '94 we started an Earn a Bike program, where kids in the local community, which for us was in the Canal District, would come to our warehouse. They would learn how to work on bikes, learn job training skills, and they would earn points for bikes of their own. So there we would see some of the same kids all the time for many years. Some would start at age 9 and stick with us through, they graduated for high school. And so those kids, we also take them on rides. So those are the two populations of kids. Oh, and we have a third program too. We have a mobile program now, where we go out to, mostly it's in Marin County. Sometimes we go out of Marin County. It's mostly schools, after school sessions, where on a weekly basis we teach the kids bike mechanics and do riding with them too.
And so then the 3 sets of kids, 25,000 kids over the course of your time, and that affects their parents, that affects their community, getting these kids out. And Sherm, as a rider, big time.
Growing demographic of a segment of our kids are newly arrived kids, immigrant kids, Central America, China, Asia, and I've had the pleasure, honor of leading rides with kids from those demographic groups. Sometimes there's a language barrier, but usually there's an agency leader that helps us through that. But just to get the kids out of their small neighborhood or apartment area, out into the park, something as easy as Golden Gate Park, or it's really something they've never experienced. Never experienced going out to Ocean Beach, of all places. They've never been to the beach because they never had no real reason to get out, or it wasn't easy for them to get out. And just being on a bike empowers them to do that, just to get out and see the rest of their new homeland.
And I know some of those kids come back to volunteer as well as make the bikes. And have you got kids working for you, or now? How do they tell us about that?
Yeah, well, in our Earn a Bike program particularly, we do hire, after a child reaches the age of 14, you can legally hire them. And we normally will have 1 or 2 kids that have gone that far, and we do actually hire them in our bike shop, which is we have a second bike shop in the Canal District. So the kids that come out on the rides, as I say, because it's not the same kids all the time, that is a service more for the agencies. Because what I found when I first looked into this, I knew I had like 2 ways to go. I could work with the same agency, do multiple rides with them, really work to with, again, the same kids all the time, teaching them whatever lessons we wanted to impart, or we could service the agencies. And what happened, I sent a needs survey, and this was in '86, a needs survey to 40 social service agencies around the Bay Area. 20 of them, which is very high percentage,
It is high.
responded. And I said, if I started something like this, would you participate? 20 of them came back, yes, definitely.
Oh, good.
And so I decided we were going to serve the agencies because what I was finding, they had very few affordable opportunities, almost none, to take these kids out.
Wow. So they appreciated what you were doing.
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
how were you funded? I know a lot of you founders worked for years without a salary. I think that might have been your case too, right?
Yeah, that was for 10 years.
Oh, my
and Sherman
goodness.
was a volunteer, and it was all run out of my home in Mill Valley. And I had a Volvo station wagon with room for 8 bikes on top, 2 on the back, 1 inside, and all of our gear. And it was all volunteer run for 10 years. And we still were raising money, though, in various assorted ways. Not a lot, but I was a saver. We kept saving the money. And before long, I decided, and that was in '94, it was time to leave my home. It was occupied by every room, had boxes, 100 bikes in the backyard because we were putting on our Mill Valley bike swap. So we were collecting all this stuff. And we found the Ritter House had a half of a garage on 610 4th Street. And we found that location, and so we moved up there and started other aspects of our program. So the other money came from, going to the swamp, selling items that had been donated, and we did start to write grants too. So we were getting some foundation grants, individuals, and now our biggest source of income, that little shop in the half a garage, grew to be where we finally occupied the whole building. We bought it in '97. It's a green business that is a bike thrift store, and it now funds 60% plus of our expenses.
Fantastic. Congratulations on that. So you were executive director, help me out with the math here, for how many years?
Well, that would have been, I guess, the 27 years.
Wow,
yes.
27 years. And I know that sometimes nonprofits have some hard times and you have to go through. What made you stick it out and keep going? And
Well, we were lucky, actually. We never economically had hard times, and we were always able to save money. And I just enjoyed it so much. I enjoyed every day. I enjoyed the people that I met, like Sherm. I just loved the people. And then when we started hiring staff, the staff and the kids. So I never felt like anything was getting in my way to keep going. And personally, I've just always enjoyed it.
wasn't work. It wasn't work for you.
No, it was not work.
Yes, it
was
wasn't
not
work.
Definitely not.
And Sherm, do you have a story about one of the successes of one of the kids, perhaps?
A lot of the stories are individual, little baby small steps. On just about every ride we get a kid who hasn't ridden a bike that much, or maybe fibbed a little and said, "I know how to ride," but in reality, didn't really. But we can get them through the first hour. It all comes back, and that counts as a personal win for all of us. And just how they react at the end of a ride, says, "Boy, that was really fun. I want to do it again." That's my reward right there, and that means we have succeeded in encouraging children to go out and ride when they can. A lot of these kids are underserved, of course, so they don't have their own bike, or they don't have access to a good bike like we have. That's another thing we're trying to solve through Earn a Bike and the mobile bike program. Get kids good hardware so they can go out riding on their own. But at the end of a successful ride like that, it always makes me feel nice that I've reached somebody
Right.
and they want to go and get a bike. The next step is theirs, to get a bike, and we'll help them do it.
Fantastic. And you have another job. What's your day job?
My day job is internal communications contractor for
Okay.
a financial services company, so that pays the bills. But,
But you love
Yeah.
doing what you do.
it gets me out of
Yeah.
the office. It's a home office, and you get very isolated working at home, just talking to people over the computer.
Wonderful.
But
And Marilyn, I think you've grown this to beyond Mill Valley, haven't you? Can you tell us a little bit about the national organization, even I think international, is that right?
We are a little international. We now have 70 chapters around, well, most of them are in the United States, 5 are in Canada, and we started one in Sierra Leone and in Israel. And the way that came about, well, I'm going to backstep. When I first thought of the idea of Trips for Kids, my next thought was, I can't do it. And I read personally, I didn't have the confidence in myself, I read 2 weeks later that a psychologist with the YMCA was running a very similar program. And I wrote to him and I said, I'm not a psychologist, what do you think? Right away, he writes me back a letter, you don't need to be a psychologist, just start small. So I realized, and that, besides having the idea, he gave me, the you can do it. And that's when I really dug in. And I realized years later, we had an article that was in Bicycling Magazine, it's now a Rodale Press publication, 3-page article with colored photos. And I started getting inquiries from around the country, kind of like where I was. Oh, yeah, I thought of that too. How did you do it? Or, what can you tell me? And so it was like that was the inkling of an idea that I could do what this psychologist had done for me and help these other people start chapters.
that's how you started our first chapters, right?
That's how we started, but that idea gave me, so I go to our board and we decided, we will start chapters, and just working on that level, that's why, that was in, I think, 99. In
Wow.
99.
Wow,
And now we have
fantastic.
the 70 chapters.
Oh,
Yeah.
so many children you've helped, and their families, because I know as a mother, when my son's happy, I'm happy. So, another question I had for you is, at some moment you decided that you were going to turn it over and have another life, another stage of your life. So how did you think about that? How did you get through that?
Yeah, and that was a little bit, had several different ingredients. And I had been saying to our board for years, I'm a very grassroots person, and I like doing things from the bottom up, and just I never planned, what we were going to do, just one step at a time. But I realized with our national program, because I looked at other national programs that had since sprung up, that we could do more on the national level. And so I would say to our board, I can keep it going as we are, but I don't think I personally can take it to the next step.
Oh.
And, on like the bureaucratic organization that is going to do all the PR and things like that. And so that was, the big reason to kind of like make a change. So I can give them what I've done today and continue. I'm on the board. I'm helping to plan some national strategy. I'm going to go back to where I started and volunteer on rides and visit our shop and visit the kids at the warehouse. And then I'm also doing stuff directly for some other environmental organizations too.
They're not going to let you slip away. There's no way they're going to let you get out of sight.
Nor do I want to.
Right,
actually.
exactly. But it is very forward thinking of someone who's been there a long time to turn the reins over and be more of an advisor, which is, I think, what they see you as and what you are.
Yes,
So, and the kids must just love it when you come around.
Oh, I love going around. It's
that's
just there on
wonderful.
Saturday.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful.
How can the community support you?
Well, there's several ways. The easiest way, as I say, if 60% of our income comes from the money we need to run the organization comes from the shop. The easiest way is for people to donate and shop with us. Donate items that they have sitting around, bike items that they have sitting around they're not using. We are a bike thrift shop. Donating and shopping because our prices are very reasonable. If you are environmental, it's all, reused, or even if it's new, it's items from the bike industry that they would have thrown away. So it's definitely a form of reuse. So that is the easiest way. Then, of course, volunteering for us, as Sherman did years ago, and contributing financially would be the three big ways that people can help us.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to put your website up so people can take a look at it and see how they might donate or send their kids over or contribute. And
that too.
is there anything you'd like to say, Sherm, before we close?
I think I can speak for Trips for Kids staff that we had mixed feelings when Marilyn announced her retirement from us, quote-unquote quasi-retirement. We liken Trips for Kids, Marilyn and Trips for Kids will be forever linked together, and I think like I said, I can speak for staff. We're incredibly loyal to Marilyn, and she'll always be our boss.
Oh,
seriously.
Wonderful.
We have a mutual admiration society because I love the people that
a number of long-term employees who've known Marilyn for 5-10 years, and myself as a volunteer employee have put in that time, but there are a number of other key people in Trips for Kids that I'm pretty sure shared my sentiment. So
That's so wonderful. Well, you bring business acumen in the heart of a volunteer. And Marilyn, with your passion and your foresight, and I hope you really can find a way to make a big contribution that you want to in our environmental needs in today's world. Thank you so much for being with us today. Appreciate it.
Jacqueline.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.